the current education system does not adequately or is not adjusted to the needs of the job market. And this is also exhibited by the lack of employment skills. The job market demands this, but what is being presented is contrary to what the job market demands. Yeah, so far these are the issues that we have realized that call for urgent attention and relate well to the problem at hand. In terms of the challenges, yes, the quality education is still a challenge in the country, and this is also manifested in terms of the implementation of the curriculum, the learning environment, and also the preparedness of teachers. The other challenge we also seen within this, there's also limited involvement of parents. The previous colleague also hinted on this, that the school, parent, and the community interface is limited, and again, it's also coming out as a challenge within which we have to address the disconnectedness between the different levels of education. And now, once they're disconnected, it means there's no inclusive element within the different levels. Otherwise, the disconnectedness does not allow the transition to take place, which we see within the key thematic area. In terms of the opportunities are there for us to take advantage of, and one of them is the political will or support for access to education. The existence of competence-based curriculum. The curriculum is there, and so maybe working towards this competence-based could be the way to address some of the issues arising from delivery. Rwanda, the other opportunity is that Rwanda is a growing economy and with finding opportunities. So once we are strategic, we should be in position to attract some of these funding opportunities that are available. The pathways for action, they are not yet concrete because we're still brainstorming. If you gave us some more time, we would have concrete ones, but these are just so more policy research on the curriculum delivery. Then explore continuous teacher professional development across the sector, and also looking at, because we mentioned of the disconnectedness, now we're also looking at how best we could stimulate the connectedness within the different levels, and then around for transition. Then identify sustainable mechanism that engages the community and parents. And this is where we lose it because in most cases there's no ownership. Yes, in most cases there's no ownership because we don't involve parents, we don't involve communities. And so in most cases you find some of the schools are just like they can take off each and everything. Identify self-promotion sustainable mechanism that addresses teenage pregnancies, much as this one, we just threw this one in there, but it's also the statistics are alarming within this country. There's high dropout rate arising from this, but would align it later within the context. And then explore viable options that can strengthen indicators that are adaptive to dynamics of continuous change. We need some of these changes that possibly could allowing transition, which transition could be maybe success and other countries can pick from there. This is our work, but as raw as it is, we pledge to improve it further, and so this is the starting point. Thank you so much.
Teachers and the teaching methods need to be explored, need to be looked into, actually researched. What is happening? The other aspect is the preconditions for pupils in the system. What is the environment like in the school psychosocially, physically, plus the supportive environment from home. How is it? Those elements of the system need to be looked at significantly.
When we think of the employment rate or unemployment rate, and then we see the informal settlements in Kigali or other secondary cities, we see how people are being employed. We see that this is a very relevant topic in the Rwandan context. Then we thought of disasters and our readiness to respond to disasters. When we think of, for example, flooding, when we think of houses which are being demolished because of rainfall, because of climate change, and then we think of how the materials we use for construction of our houses, how they are. And then we say that this topic of education for sustainable cities and communities is very relevant. And then we talk of structure, design, and material used. Then we thought of engineers design roads, they build roads, they use cement, but then they don't think of the source of these materials they're using in construction. When we are building our houses, do we think of the houses, the bricks we use or the stones we use? Do we know where they're coming from when we think of timber? Do we know where this timber is coming from? So we said that these issues of infrastructure and the materials we use in building our infrastructure is also a very important thing in our cities. And therefore, this is a relevant topic in the Rwandan context. Then we thought of industrial design and manufacturing. We have industries, in developing countries like Rwanda, where building industries, people are building industry here and there. And then when they think of materials they're using in building industries and the things they're producing and how they're packaging things. They see, for example, we have an example in our discussions of plastic, using plastic things to make our things out, like using plastics to use sweets and all these things. And we think of how we want to manage these wastes that are produced. And then this is a relevant topic. And then we thought of health and our readiness to respond to health challenges. In urban areas, that's where we have infectious diseases, but we're also seeing non-communicable diseases coming up. We are seeing obesity coming up. We are seeing cancer coming up. We are seeing it in our urban areas because of the lifestyle, the nutrition that we are having today. Are we ready to respond to these issues? So this is a topic of relevancy in our cities. So we're responding to the relevancy. So we said, we are not getting these issues in our education systems. When you think of infrastructure, the source of materials we are using, when we think of the health systems, the health issues that we are having. So we don't have the education system which is responding to these issues. Because the urban challenges are not in the traditional education curriculum that we have in Rwanda, we all know that. And then education should address the whole life cycle of the urban challenges, and the source of the challenges we need to think of what to use, but also how to get what we use. That's how we think of sustainability. And this need to be understood not only in Kigali, because you know that Kigali is the biggest city in Rwanda, but also have the secondary cities. These days we are counting 6, maybe tomorrow we'll have 10. So what about, what are the main opportunities and challenges for sustainable future and sustainable development thematic area? Well, the opportunities, the vision of the country itself. We have already designed the 6 secondary cities, and we have already thought of how to make education accessible and how education can respond to some of these issues. This is an opportunity. And then you said our cities are young. It is the right time to think of sustainability. Because when we see Kigali growing today, and we see Huye or Nyagatare or other cities growing today, so it is the right time. It's an opportunity for us as people who want to make the cities sustainable. So we see rural-urban migration at a very high level. I've already mentioned that the Kigali is growing very fast, and by 2023, the vision is Rwandan people, 35% of Rwandan people will be living in cities. And then by 2050, more than 50% of Rwandans be living in cities. So see, this is an opportunity. It's a high time to think of how we can make our cities sustainable. And then again, another thing is their population is very young, so we can train them when we think of unemployment. So this is the right time to think of how we can train them to respond to these unemployment issues. But the challenges are still there. So the challenges we have identified too. The available schools for the urban poor needs to be standardized. By standardized here, I want to mean when we think of education in the cities, we have this idea that we're accessing better education. But now, when we think of the urban poor and the schools where they go, are these schools providing quality education? And then are these people who are poor, the urban poor, are they able to afford the cost of education? These are issues that people need to think of. There are challenges. And how education systems need to change if they are to address these challenges. So we thought of education in two ways. We thought of formal education and informal education. In the formal education, we said we need to introduce education field that will focus on urban studies or maybe urban health studies or issues that are dealing with the urban challenges. We need to have an education field or department or I don't know, but we need to train our people to be specialists in addressing urban challenges. So the formal education, we need to conduct when we are training our students or pupils, we need to take them on site to see these challenges so that they can start thinking from early ages how these issues will be addressed. And then when we're doing research, we need to mix formal education with action research to have students explore the problems and start thinking of solutions. And also we may think of reviewing the curricula to integrate aspects that will help to build sustainable cities and communities. But again, we had here this question: what type of message need to be transmitted when we are thinking of redesigning the education system, when we think of integrating in the education system, integrating courses which respond to urban challenges? What are the messages? What is the content? Then we said researchers need to intervene in here. And then on the part of informal education, which we thought is also very important, in the informal education, we said the media can help us. We said we can use community gathering forums to train people on the urban challenges and how to respond to them. We can use parents forums when we think of schools. But again, the same question comes back: what message are we going to be giving? We need researchers to respond to this. If we think of education, when we think of, for example, nursery children, which type of education to respond to these urban challenges? What education do they need? When you think of primary schools, what content can we give them? When you think of university, what content are we going to give them? So we need researchers to respond to these questions. Thank you very much.
Climate change is a global issue, and it is also an issue in Rwanda, and climate change is real and affects all sectors in Rwanda. This can be explained by our record in an unusual precipitation, which cause landslide and others, and increase of temperature, which cause also droughts in some area of our country. So this unreal precipitation and temperature are recorded over time. Therefore, we need to educate our people about climate change, but also we need to see what we can educate and how to educate. The second point was about the opportunities for sustainable development in our thematic area. The opportunity in climate change for action are included in the climate change adaptation and the mitigation measures in place in our country. We all know about energy efficiency infrastructures and renewable energy. Our country is also doing well with smart agriculture, which increase resilience to climate change. We are also doing well with disaster management and early warning system. But we have still to increase our resilience to climate change, to address climate change impact. We have also existence of policies and regulation aligned with climate change action. We have this National Environment Climate Change Policy. We have the Green Growth and the Climate Change Resilience Strategy. We have also this National Adaptation Plan, National Mitigation Plan. We have also National Determined Contribution, among others, strategies and the guidelines put in place to deal with climate change. As opportunity also, we have this partnership on local, regional, and international level. But we have some challenges in line with climate actions. We can highlight the lack of skills and materials in education for climate action. We have also limited capacity to deal with climate change impacts. As Rwanda is among the developing countries, we have limited capacity to deal with climate change action. As I said, climate change affects all sectors. For instance, we have limited capacity in agriculture, in health, among others. Another challenge is that climate change is not currently fully integrated in our education system at all levels. I mean informal and informal education. The measure to address all of these challenges and considering also our opportunity, the first is increase or strengthen mainstreaming education for sustainable development in our school curricula and education system. We have also to develop clear manual and guide on education for climate change. We have also to build capacity. We need experts in climate change. If you have to educate, you have to have enough knowledge and skills in what you are teaching or what we are educating. We can also use our community network, like Muganda, like what we call Mugoro Wabye, and other occasion, community action, to raise awareness on climate actions. We have also to build partnership at all levels, because climate change is not will not be addressed by Ministry of Environment, by Ministry of Infrastructure or Agriculture. It is a global issue which must be addressed by all community, including civil society, private sector, government, and even non-government organization. That was our work on climate action. Thank you.
The first question we addressed was, what is the overall relevance of this thematic area for Rwanda? In other words, what is the overall relevance of this cross-cutting issues, inequalities, poverty, gender, and indigeneity? we say that these issues are very relevant. This thematic area is very relevant. For instance, in relation to poverty, we said that 39% are below poverty line, and even those above poverty line have what we call internal differences. Within those above poverty line, we have also internal differences in relation, for instance, to rural versus urban areas. In relation to poverty, also say that some people still survive because of some social protection policies that are in place. If removed, these cannot survive, these people cannot survive on their own. In relation to poverty, we also said women in both rural and urban areas are the most vulnerable due to limited level of education, limited skills, but also limited expertise. In relation to indigeneity, we said that this topic is very relevant to us because in our community we have historically marginalized groups, and their situation is actually not improving as we would want to. Now, what are the opportunities and the challenges? What are the opportunities in relation to poverty, gender, and indigeneity? We say there are several opportunities. These include, for instance, political will. We have a political will. We have also a legal and a policy framework in place to address this. We have also specific programs that have been designed to cater for these issues. For instance, you can think here about gender responsive budgeting. We can think about national strategy for transformation. We can think about affirmative actions. We can think about policies against GBV. We can think about policies for girls' education. So we have a political will, legal policy framework, and specific programs that are in place. However, there are still challenges to be highlighted. And we have listed these. The first challenge is poverty itself. Second, we have highlighted cultural and social norms, which should be understood in terms of gender stereotypes constructed around gender, where, for instance, some jobs, some careers are reserved or perceived as reserved for men and others for women. The other challenge we have highlighted is linked to limited skills and human capacity, or also the lack of updated numbers. This is in relation particularly to gender. We have also highlighted the issue of some positions, some political positions meant for men, and some the vice mayor in charge of social affairs is always perceived as necessary to be a female, while, for instance, we see limited number of women occupying, for instance, the vice mayor in charge of finance and economic development. We have also highlighted the challenge of lack of confidence. Now, how does the education system have to deal with these challenges? How the education systems need to change to address these challenges? we have conducted this reflection in line with the challenges. First, in relation to poverty, we said the education system should be constructed in a way that addresses the needs of communities. We have to shift from the colonial type of schooling, and the school and the community should be linked. We should bring back the education system to the community. We should create spaces where the community and the school meet so that there is an interaction between the two. So we have also said to address the challenge of community, the education system should impart entrepreneurial skills. It should be education for doing, not only education for knowing. With regards to cultural norms, cultural and social norms, we said education should focus on the deconstruction of gender norms. And we should connect what we teach with what we do. And this can take place, for instance, in school management, in leadership, in school leadership, but also at home and in our families. In other words, we should teach by doing. If we are to encourage gender, we should teach by doing. In other words, we should cater for gender sensitivities also in our schooling. What we have called the main engaged approach in education. In relation to limited skills and human capacity, we said we should go for entrepreneurial education. Our education should not be theoretical. It should rather be practical. Life skills is centered, and it should foster competence-based assessment, but also embrace the idea of project-based learning. We have also highlighted the relevance of career guidance and mentorship, starting from the lower level of education, pre-primary, primary, and secondary education. In relation to positions, to gendered positions or roles, we have suggested the idea of doing gender and not speaking gender, which entails the idea of changing gender norms in all areas, political leadership and outside the arena as well. To conclude, in relation to marginalized communities, we have said education should be inclusive with the idea of leaving no one behind. In other words, marginalized communities, in our context, historically marginalized communities, should be included and taken care of in the education sector. We have also suggested to explore ways of maximizing or developing their capacity and their skills so that they can do this to their best in order to earn a decent living. So if there is any points, colleagues from my group, which I might have overlooked, before concluding, you can point this out. Colleagues, do you have any point you want to highlight?
I just wanted to remind you of the assessment also.
Sorry?
I wish to remind you about the assessment.
Yeah, I said competence-based assessment.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, you did say that.
Sorry, Shaka, if there's something I'm overlooked.
Yes. I don't know if we talked about doing more research on indigenous.
Correct, yeah. We suggested also doing more research on indigenous communities, certain marginalized communities, to see how they, for instance, are faring in education, what they are good at, their skills, their aptitudes, their capacity, and how this can be implemented. Something else? It's okay?
So
Thank you very much.
Very okay.